Okay, so I'll get started. Carolyn can help with our other panelists, but welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us bright and early, or I guess it's lunchtime now, but on time. So I wanted to thank you for your attendance. It looks like Ned has joined us as well. The purpose of the session is basically to give you an overview of the function of the board as well as the role of a board member with respect to possibly running for a board position in the coming elections. We've got 3 ridings that we'll be running, or the 3 districts. We're going to touch on things such as a time commitment, the benefits of involvement, and competencies required to be a board member. We'll give an overview of the election process as well as the pre-screening interview, which is relatively new. We're happy to take questions as we proceed, so you can use the chat box and type in your questions, and we'll keep an eye out for your questions as we go. We're also going to hear from 2 of our board members and their experience at the end of our presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers as well at the end, time permitting. But do feel free to type in your inquiries or questions, and we'll stop along the way and try to answer them. So before we get started, I'll just quickly start with a land acknowledgement. So the College of Opticians of Ontario operates on the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and Wendat people. The college acknowledges and respects that these lands are now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who continue to experience the impact of colonization. The college also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. With the utmost of respect and humility, we at the college are grateful to live and work on these lands and are committed to educating ourselves in the areas of cultural safety and humility in the delivery of equitable healthcare in Ontario. So with that, let's get started. So a couple of things before we kick off our slide deck. I'll just talk about who's joining us here. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to explore, as I said, with the help of our 2 board members, Neda Mohamedzada and Derek Summers. Neda has been a board member for about 9 years now and has previously held the position of vice chair. Derek has been an elected board member since January 2022 and is currently our vice chair right now. Prior to that, he was an appointed member for almost 11 years, and both of them will be sharing their experience with us as far as their time on the board and the committees of the college. Joining me today also is Amy Stein, who is our deputy registrar and our counsel, legal counsel here at the college, and my name is Fazal Khan, and my position here is the registrar at the college, and I'm also an optician. So if we can get the PowerPoint deck started, we'll just share a presentation with you and go over a few things. Okay, if I can get the next one, the overview slide. Perfect. So as I said, we're going to talk about what the function of the college is, what does the board itself do, board member competencies and characteristics, talk a little bit about some of the benefits of actually being involved with the college. We'll overview the elections process and the pre-election interview screening process. If I can get the next slide, please. So the function of the college. Now, this gets often mixed up or confused with the association. So with the college, our primary mandate is to protect the public. Whereas with the association, that is your advocacy body for the needs of the profession. So with us, the focus is public interest. Everything comes from a public perspective. So a lot of times people are very passionate about a topic or something, whether it be, for instance, we've had people who say, well, I want to do something to improve opticians' wages or working conditions. That's not really a college mandate. That is more of a professional mandate. And that's something that really, if that's your passion, you probably are best off joining the association. The college, we set and monitor the entry to practice requirements. So we set out sort of what the the competencies are, what you need to know as an optician to enter the practice. Once you're in the practice, we establish and maintain the standards of practice, which are what the sort of the responsibilities are as far as what type of service and professional obligations you have to your patients. We receive and resolve complaints. We hold discipline hearings where necessary. We also promote continued competence through the quality assurance program. So not only have we set the entry to practice and the standards, but to ensure that you continually are competent as you go forward, because it'll be several years, hopefully, that you're practicing once you leave school. And so to make sure your skills are still there and your skills are relevant to the changing practice environment, there is the QA program. To practice as an optician in Ontario, you must be registered with the college. Now, in contrast with the association, as I said, if it's a professional advocacy topic that you're passionate about, that is the place for you. While the college requires you to carry liability insurance, the association actually provides such, where the college requires you to keep up with your quality assurance. The association is one of the major providers of continuing education and seminars. They deliver industry news and keep you up to date on what's happening. And membership is voluntary. So if I can get the next slide, please. Okay, great. Perfect. So what does the board do and what do its directors do? So the board sets the strategic direction for the college. So essentially that's done pretty much every 3 years or so, where the board will meet, look at information, environmental scans, what's happening in the profession, what's happening with patients, things like that, and sort of set out a roadmap for the 3 years following as to what are the goals that the board wants to achieve. The focus is always a public focus. And the board directors have fiduciary duties. Preparedness, coming to meetings, having read the materials and ready to have a good discussion. Accountability to their fellow board members, to the public, to the ministry. A requirement of loyalty. Confidentiality is huge especially when we're working with registrant files, whether we're looking at quality assurance portfolios or transacting complaints. Confidentiality is a must. Disclosing conflicts of interest. We all wear many hats as board members. People are teaching, people are working in retail, people work for large manufacturers. And so sometimes there is a conflict that might come up when we're developing policies that might affect one of those stakeholders. So it's important that you kind of set out, the different hats that you wear that might be perceived as a conflict. Risk management is important. We do give training in that, mitigating risk. The board looks to mitigate risk at the college level and also in their own duties, including protecting confidential information. As a committee member, you're going to work on developing policies and file reviews, work on standards, that type of thing. So there's a broad amount of things that you are working on here, and there are expectations of you as a board member that when you take on the position, you have the time and you take that role very seriously. If I can get the next slide, please. So we'll just go the other way. Great. So a lot of times we get questions from people who are very interested in running for the board, but they're concerned about what kind of time this will take, because obviously a lot of people are balancing their primary careers. So board meetings typically happen every quarter, and that would consume probably 4 to 6 days of your time, because some board meetings are a day, some happen to go a day and a half or 2 days. Committee meetings, depending on how many committees you're on, committee meeting time will take maybe 7 to 15 days, depends on how active your committee is. A A lot of times committee meetings are they can range from short meetings for like between 1 to 2 hours for quick panel meetings to half a day, and sometimes there's a full day meeting. We do have training and strategic planning sessions. Training, we do things like preparing you to look at financial statements, training on conflict of interest, diversity, equity, inclusion training. So between strategic planning and training every year, you could say that you probably want to allocate about 3 to 5 days of the year. And if you look at a total time commitment, you're looking at probably 14 to 26 days a year. So as I said, while meetings will last, a couple of hours, most meetings will require 1 to 3 hours of prep also ahead of time. So we have what's called a virtual boardroom. It contains all your preparatory materials, reading materials, and we post things typically a week ahead of time before any meeting. So you've got some time to go in there and do your readings as you have time for. But typically a short meeting, you might have a bit of about maybe an hour. A board meeting, you might spend as much as 3 hours to prepare for that one-day meeting, and you are remunerated for your prep time as well. So I can get the next slide, please. So important to note, meetings are usually held during regular business hours, not after hours. So you are going to have to be able to carve out time from your work schedule. They're often morning meetings or all day meetings, as I said. So it's important to make sure that you're able to do that. And as well, if you're doing a meeting from work, you should be able to have it in a fairly secure spot where others aren't able to sort of listen in and things like that, because some of your committee content is confidential. So you should be able to make sure that you're in a secure location. Now, board members who reside outside the GTA can expense meals and travel and accommodations for the purposes of attending in-person meetings. Lately, since post-pandemic, we've been doing most of our meetings via Zoom. So that's made things a lot easier as far as a lack of commuting. Out of our quarterly meetings last year, we did 1 board meeting in person and the other 3 were remote. So we know that accessibility is a lot better, and you're not spending as much time in transit when we're doing remote meetings. Board members who reside outside the GTA are provided with a per diem to cover their meals in appropriate situations. So if you're in for a full day meeting where lunch is not provided, we'll reimburse you for those type of things. Okay, Colonel, if I get the next slide. So, we're going to hear from Netta and Derek also to get their perspectives on this. But, some of the benefits of involvement, a lot of people are looking for, something more in their career path where they're looking for further growth. And the college provides a great opportunity to get training that is a very good transferable skill. So we have training regarding governance. We have training regarding risk mitigation, conflict of interest, as I said before, diversity, equity, inclusion. So there's a lot of good training that we offer that you can use in other areas of your life. It's a great opportunity to contribute to public safety and public interest. And it's a great opportunity for you to be directly involved in the governance of your profession. Compensation is provided as far as your attendance and your preparatory time, so that it can help you replace sort of your wages for the day. It's determined by the board on a table, and it's not necessarily going to make anyone rich, but it hopefully is there to compensate you for the time that you're away from work. But again, even with that in mind, you've got to make sure that your working arrangements can give you the time to fulfill your duties as a board member. Okay, if I get the next slide. So I'm going to actually get Amy to help me out here and take on a couple of these next slides here, and starting with the board members' core competencies. So Amy, if I could turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Fazal. So now we're sort of getting to the stage of, okay, if you have gone through all of these steps in your head, that this is something you'd like to pursue, you feel like it would, benefit you and your knowledge and career path, and that you have the time to devote to the role. We're sort of getting into now how the selection process works. And one of the really important features of that process is that the people coming forward and putting themselves forward for election need to demonstrate these 5 core competencies. And we call them core competencies or behavioral competencies because they don't necessarily relate to specific experiences that you've had in your professional career. You don't have to have ever been on a board or committee before. They're really things that can be demonstrated through any aspect of your life, personal, your professional life, whatever that was, your education, etc. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each one of these competencies a little bit later, but just to introduce you to them, we've got passion and being public service oriented. And that's because, of course, we are an organization that is acting in the public interest, exemplified integrity, being unbiased and open-minded, demonstrating critical judgment and decision-making, and collaboration and inclusion. So if we go to the next slide, what's the rationale for these particular competencies? Well, we are now into a new strategic plan as of 2023, but in our last strategic plan, which ran for 3 years, the board approved a whole number of goals and strategies around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the, we've listed sort of 3 of the priorities that the board identified. So there was one that the process for selecting people to sit on our boards and committees is the process itself be competency based, so based on specific competencies that they've identified, and also barrier free. And these are both really important because the competencies are not meant to discourage people from running or to only make running for election available to a select number of people. It really is for everybody who is committed to those competencies and those areas of knowledge that we identified on the last slide. We want to make sure that there's opportunities and resources for our registrants and our non-registrants to apply for positions on boards and committees. Only registrants can run for elections, but when we hire committee members, we hire both registrants and non-registrants. So we want that to be available to everyone from any background. So regardless of whether you've had prior experience on a board or on a committee. And it's really important to the college as well that diversity, equity, and inclusion be integrated within our internal governance structure so that the decision-making process has these principles as our foundation. So on the next slide, let's talk a little bit about the election process itself. So by way of an overview, there's a number of documents that are available on our website. So most important for you and those of you considering putting in a nomination is to read that nomination guide. There's an FAQ section in there for questions that you might have about that. But of course, you can always contact us. There's an email address specific for elections, any questions that you have, or contact by phone about what the election process and the nomination process looks like. It's also necessary for you to take some steps a little bit earlier on, because one of the steps you'll need to take to complete the nomination process is to complete a pre-election training module. So all the information about that is also on our website, and you have a direct link to the module. It's part of your jurisprudence module as optician, so you can also claim it as your CE requirements if you haven't done that chapter in the last 3 years. So nominations are due by August 29th at noon. So make sure to get those in by the deadline. And those who are successfully put in their nomination and meet all of the eligibility criteria in our bylaws, we're going to be contacting you to set up a screening interview. And the date for that will be September the 6th. Now, voting itself, I apologize, it looks like there might be a typo here. The voting is going to run for 2 weeks from October 14th to October 28th, not November. So that's sort of the process itself. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that screening interview portion of it, because I know that that is something that I'm sure many people have some questions about and what that looks like. So let's go to the next slide. So the screening interview itself is maximum 40 to 60 minutes, but usually, 30 to 40 is probably what you can expect for that. The people who are interviewing you were people that were selected by our board, but they are not opticians, and most of them are not members of the board either. These are committee members who are members of the public, as well as public appointees to our board of directors, which are the non-opticians that the government has appointed to our board. So the reason why these are the people on the screening panel is that they have a bit of distance from the profession. They're less likely to have encountered you in a professional way. It's for that fairness, for having it a bit arm's length. And the purpose of this interview is not to, hear about your experience on boards or committees in the past. It's really about those 5 competencies that we identified before. And as we mentioned, September 6th is going to be the day. Of course, if there's a concern that you're not available on that date, please don't make that a end of the story that you now think you can't run for election. Please just reach out to us because we might be able to accommodate an alternate date. So contact us if you think that day in particular will be an issue. So let's dive into the competencies themselves now. So on the next slide, we'll start with the first competency, which is passion and being public service oriented. So a couple of criteria to sort of articulate what that competency is all about is that you demonstrate outstanding initiative and commitment towards the practice of opticianry, and that you're committed to serving the college's mandate to regulate the profession of opticianry in the public interest. So as we mentioned, and as Fazal was talking about before, the college's role is not promotion of the profession, it's actually promotion of the public interest. So we'd want to be hearing from you in the process of this interview around that commitment and how you'll demonstrate that. So the next slide is competency 2, which is exemplified integrity. So that's demonstrating a conviction to do what's right and to reject what's wrong, regardless of the consequences. Board members often have to make decisions that are going to be unpopular. Sometimes those decisions are going to be unpopular with their own colleagues in the profession. And it's important that board members be able to distinguish, between what will make them popular versus what is right in the circumstances. So the next slide, number 3, is being unbiased and open-minded. So board members need to be able to self-identify around things that might be impacting their ability to make an unbiased decision. Everybody has biases, whether they're aware of them or not. So if you are aware of a bias, it's being able to set that aside. And then it's also being proactive about the unconscious things that might be impacting our ability to make an unbiased decision. And we do provide training in that area if this is, something that is, maybe a newer idea of something to be thinking about. But it's important that everyone sort of always check in with themselves around what might be impacting their decision. And this is also around people being willing to actively listen, to absorb all information and to make an informed and open-minded decision. We provide reading materials to prepare for your meetings, but we hope people come to the meeting willing to listen to everybody who's there, willing to maybe change their mind. They might have come in thinking one thing, and perhaps after hearing from the people in the meeting, they might be open to changing that. So on the next slide, number 4 is critical judgment and decision making. So board members, as board members, and then also as committee members, you'll be making decisions that are sometimes complex. You'll need to, be able to apply analytical skills, wisdom, use your experience, and demonstrate judgment in your decision-making process. And you need to be comfortable with concepts and complexity and looking beyond the obvious answers and just going along with the rest of the group. And finally, collaboration and inclusion is around demonstrating an open mindset, listening without judgment, and embracing diversity of others and of thought, and then seeking to understand and build on the strengths of others. So it's really demonstrating that you value what everyone's bringing to the table based on their own life experience, their own background, and their own opinions. So how does one prepare for an interview about some of these very, philosophical concepts in a sense? And we've said a number of times, this doesn't necessarily have to be based on experience that you've had in the past on a board or on a committee. So a few suggestions that we have for you is, number one, understand what the college does and understand about our public protection mandate. There's plenty of information on our website, so we always recommend that you review that. And think about and be ready to speak about, number one, why you're interested in joining the board and what you would like to accomplish as a board member, and then how you demonstrate each of these competencies. Now, we always say, remember to do a technology check. So that's sort of separate and apart from preparing, but the interview will be conducted via Zoom. So we always recommend you, check that you're updated, that your audio and video seem to be working. But how are you going to plan and prepare for demonstrating each of these competencies? So on the next slide, I have another few suggestions that we recommend. So we already talked about, being ready to speak about why you're interested, what you'd like to accomplish. So what we suggest for the competencies is go back and before the interview, think of examples of how you demonstrate each of them. And remember, these can be drawn from any aspect of your life. So it could be from your work as an optician, in your professional capacity, but it could also be from your personal life. It could be from previous experience that you've had on board or committees. It could be clubs you're involved in, hobbies that you're involved in. So always recommend that you look at each one and actually ahead of the interview, think of some examples around that, because that will be, the questions are all going to be based on various situations that you might have found yourself in the past and how you've employed these competencies. So by way of an example, and this is not an interview question, but just to give you a sense of what kinds of questions will be asked, something like, tell us about a time that you collaborated with others in order to carry out a task or a project. So that would be asking you to give an example around the competency of collaboration and inclusion. So I think that brings us to the end of our sort of structured presentation. And I'm going to turn it back over to Fazal to start the Q&A portion with our two board members who have joined us today.
Perfect. So if we can maybe drop the screen share and fill up the screen with Derek and Netta's lovely faces. Perfect. So as I said earlier, we've got both Derek and Netta, who are current sitting board members with us today. And I thought just to get things rolling, we'll ask them a few questions and then we'll open it up to the floor and see if there's any questions from our attendees. So to get started, I'm going to ask both of you to share what interested you about getting involved with the college. So Netta, maybe we'll start with you to start with on this question.
Hi, everyone. Presentation was great. Thank you for the opportunity that I can share my experience with college.
Sorry, Netta, I think you muted yourself. Perfect.
Sorry. Technology check. We always do that.
Yes, we do.
Okay. What did interest me, to be honest with you, I was optician for a couple of years before I joined college, but I didn't have that full confidence, I would say. It was something was missing. I didn't know what it was missing, but I knew something is missing. And when the opportunity came forward for my district, and I had no idea what I'm stepping to, but I'm extremely happy that I got involved. And the last 9 years I was with college. But definitely I would say it was some kind of a force that I didn't know exactly what it is, but for sure I knew that as an optician, I need to know more about governance and know about the whole, the interest of the protection that we're giving to the public. And I definitely, after 9 years, I can tell that there would be no other way for me to really deeply understand and comprehend the whole aspect of our profession.
Thank you, Netta. Derek, can I also ask you the same question? What interested you in getting involved?
So oddly enough, Now, I mean, this is going back a fair way, as we established earlier, but I mean, as I recall, I'm a second generation optician, and back then I remember being a little bit on the frustrated side about things I was seeing, just how things were turning in the industry, what we were seeing as far as education, and I thought there was a lot we could do better to protect the public. So when I actually voiced those concerns to the registrar at the time, they were there, they answered my questions, they were there to help. And then she turned around and challenged me and said, what are you doing to make it better? And it was a wake-up call. And I kind of went, you know what? I can't just sit here and complain. I have to actually be involved in making this process better and to take care of this profession and the public that has treated me so well for 2 generations now. So that's why I'm here.
All right. Well, while I've still got you unmuted, can I ask you to speak to sort of what committees you sat on and which ones you might have enjoyed the most?
So at this point, I think I have actually sat on every single committee that is in place. I can talk of pros and cons for almost every single one. They all have their perks, they all have their challenges, they're all interesting things, but I think at the end of the day, I find quality assurance is near and dear to my heart, because that is how we protect the public, by being better opticians. I will tell you that I have enjoyed my time chairing the discipline committee, as again, I find that's an incredibly important aspect of what we do. And the one that everybody kind of looks at me funny is that I have actually really enjoyed the governance committee, because I actually really enjoy creating rules and regulations. Don't laugh. But yeah, those would be my tops.
Excellent. Thanks, Derek. And Netta, can I maybe get you to chime in on what you might have found as one of your, or a couple of your favorite committees?
I remember when first year I wanted to join college, I said, I'm going to start one of the first committee, it's governance. And I remember everybody said, are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, I know it's going to be a lot of reading. It was a lot of reading, but I learned a lot. I think it was one of the very good decisions I made, that I joined the governance first, because I deep down learned about the bylaws and all the processing. Patient relation was very interesting. I couldn't be ever part of the QA because of my other activities and responsibility out of the college. But I chaired the discipline. I was part of the executive. I would say maybe one of my favorite was the executive team. I think it was very interesting. And patient relation, it's not a big committee, but I really enjoyed that as well. As Derek said, I was sitting on all the committee except QA.
Okay. And Netta, so you had said, some of these, sorry, the honking, this is downtown. You were saying that, it sometimes seemed daunting, getting onto certain committees. But, can you talk about maybe some of the training that you received that would have helped you with your transition onto certain committees?
Definitely. I think first it was the introductory training that we did, which was very helpful. But I'm just going to let everybody know that they're going to step into this. You're going to feel lost. It's okay. I was there. I remember like yesterday, I'm like, what's going on? I had no idea what's going on. And it's extremely normal. But the trainings that and sorry about my dog as well. The training that we did, which was a strategic planning training, DEI training, facilitating and chairing, that was fantastic. That was one of the great training that I did with college, which not only helped me in college, it helped me in my own career and my own company as well. Governance training was fantastic. And the other very interesting that it's really helped me in my own business as well, it was the cybersecurity. I believe it was cybersecurity, yes, right?
That's right.
Cybersecurity training. And the other one was financial statement. Yes, financial statement training. It was extremely one of those, I would say the last 2 training, or most of them, but these last 2-3 of the training was really transferable skills. These are something you learn and you can definitely use it in your own business, in your own career, and everything else.
Excellent, excellent. Derek, if I could also ask you the same thing, what training that what type of training have you received that you found useful, and sort of maybe the benefits in your practical life and your life outside the college?
We can definitely do that. I'm going to handle it just a little off topic to begin with, just because I'm actually after I'm going to jump on Netta's original question to Netta there as well, which is it's been an interesting evolution from the time I actually started with the college to where I am now. I will say that the college as a team was very welcoming when I came on. I never felt I was lost, but I never felt like I was left out. They made sure that I was included. I received the training that I needed to receive. And I had some amazing chairs and all the committees that who made sure that I was heard. Now, people who know me know that I don't have too much of a problem being heard, but some of the training that I got after that was that it helped me become a better person myself as far as running meetings and whatnot. And now that I'm actually at the end of a decade of doing this, I see new people come in, and I'm now sometimes the chair, making sure that they're being heard and that they're being seen. And I actually love the way that we actually have made that into a fulfilling prophecy for that. To answer the question you asked me, Fazal, I would say that the most life-changing for me education that I received, and I will use the term life-changing, and I know it sounds dramatic, was the diversity, equity, and inclusivity training. Sitting down and having a conversation representing a certain demographic and looking a certain part I will admit that I had biases that I had not realized I had, and I came in that not wanting to necessarily accept certain things. And the training was done professionally. It was done supportively. There was never a sensation of it being confrontational, and it really changed who I am as a person and what I will allow in my life, both professionally and personally. And that I actually completely have to give credence to, or give thanks to the college training. I never would have received it otherwise. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you for sharing that, Derek. So to wrap up the questions to you both, so we can open up the floor to questions from our attendees, could you share a little bit about how you prepared for the elections and, kind of aligned you for being successful in getting on the board? Derek, you want to start since you were just talking, and we can turn it over next?
So I will tell you that prepping for elections is an interesting game. I have met more opticians from my district. It goes from Ottawa to Oshawa, and I have done the road trip, shaken the hands, said hello. I now know more opticians than I ever thought I would know in my entire life. I have worked on trying to use technology to kind of work on sending out a postcard-like type of thing to make sure that I'm reaching. I've tried to use social media as well. Basically, it's almost a scattergun approach. You're going to throw all of the things out there and see kind of what sticks and what catches people, because you have some people who want to meet you in person before they'll vote for you. You have some people who don't want to meet you in person and just want to see what you stand for and what you're trying to do and who you are. So you kind of have to take on all of the approaches to kind of do it successfully.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. Netta, do you want to maybe share some nuggets possibly for our attendees?
Sure. I would say my approach was more in person. We had, because I'm kind of in Toronto, in GTA, Richmond Hill, and all that area. In the seminars, definitely, I can't tell I know lots of opticians, but I think I know a lot of them, and they know me through the school and through work and all that. And mine was more in person, and but I agree with Derek 100%. At this point, I know way more optician compared to what was before.
Yeah. And, one thing that rest assured is that, part of your application package includes a biography or a bio about you, and the college will make sure that it goes up in the portal, in the election portal. So anybody whose district is running, you can sort of log into your portal and see the different candidates that are running, and a little bit of biographical information. It's not really a platform or anything, but it gives you the basic stats on who's running. So, we're doing good for time. We're at about 12:42. We're supposed to wrap up around 12:45 or so, and we still have several attendees on the line. And I would like to open the floor to our attendees to see if there's any questions. So feel free to type them into the chat box, and we can see if we can transact them. You can aim them at any one of our panelists here. Myself, Amy, Derek, or Netta would be happy to jump in. So yeah, just checking to see if we've got anything. And this is not the end all be all. If you decide you want to ask us some private questions, you can always send an email. I think Carolyn has been the point person from our office who's been sending out information about the elections. So you can always route Carolyn an email, which is at crobertson@collegeofopticians.ca. Okay, so Krista's got a question here. Can board members continue to be NACOR examiners? That is a fantastic question. So we have a number of years ago separated that role because what we're trying to make sure is that there's not too much overlap, because often if there's an appeal or something that comes up through the exams process, it's going to end up in the hands of a board member in their duties as a registration panel member. So in order to make sure that there's reduced overlap and conflict of interest, we have separated so that board members are no longer examining for NACOR. So that is an excellent question. Next one, Ed, I would assume members can vote either by mail or by electronic ballots. So there is no physical mail. Everything is cast digitally or electronically. I think we've done that process now for the last 4 or 5 years, where we have a secure elections portal. It's monitored by our IT people, and they it's open. That's why, because it's electronic, we're not waiting for snail mail. That's why the window is open for two weeks rather than a month. So you can go in if your district is running for election, you're eligible to vote in it. If you for some reason find out from somebody that they think they're eligible to vote in your area and their portal is not showing such, again, contact Carolyn and we'll check that out. But it is definitely electronic. Any other questions? So Amy's popped in there into the chat there that she's given the information to reach Carolyn or our elections mailbox. So don't be shy. We're still here and happy to take questions. Okay. I'm not really seeing much more unless I've missed anything. Netta, Derek, any closing thoughts? Good on your parts, Netta?
I would say I heard the comment from other opticians that, you know, they have some kind of a fear from college. And, you know, that's which I don't know, I should say it's natural fear, but don't be afraid. It's nothing is scary. Actually, it's a phenomenal, I would say, establishment. Is the organization that you learn a lot. I really, Fazal knows, I think at the beginning I came, I said, Fazal, I'm just going to do 1 term. I finish this 1 term and then we see how it goes. And then the second term, I said, I think I feel good. You know, it's the second term. Now I learned. Fazal said, now you can really perform. And now we can see the 9 years pass. Yeah. It is amazing. That's all I can say. I appreciate all the staff in the college, one by one. They are fantastic. They have a great support system, and you're going to enjoy, I would say, every meeting, every year that you're going to be part of the college.
Thanks, Netta. I think, Derek, you've unmuted yourself if you wanted to chime in.
I just wanted to point out, I mean, as everything Netta said is absolutely accurate. And it is an intimidating thing to actually think about coming in, because you see the structure and you think, oh, this is the self-regulating, this is the board, this is us. I think it's important to remember that it's a work in progress. It's fluid. It is changing, and it's always evolving. And you have the opportunity to evolve with it when you join. And I think that's an important thing. It's not a set institution that is done. We're growing.
Yeah, and we're always trying to improve. So we're taking the feedback of the board, we're taking the feedback of our registrants, any of our stakeholders. I just want to double back to a question and answer. So Krista asked a question, Amy jumped in and answered. But Derek's sort of living proof of this. My journey was the same. If you're not sure about jumping in as elected member, there are going to be openings for appointed members later in the fall. And an appointed member doesn't sit on the board and vote, but they do get to sit on committees and do the committee work, which is a lot of the heavy lifting. So you'll still be involved in the shaping of policy. So you don't have to run for election, you go through the screening panel, that type of thing. So that's a pathway, if you wanted to dip your toe in the pond and see what it's like. So that call for appointed members will be going out shortly. So that is another pathway. The other thing is also in talking about what Netta was saying and a little bit what Derek was saying, the administrative staff are definitely going to be here to help you. We're happy to make sure, like, our big thing is to make sure that you're successful in your role as a board member. The other thing is also we are working on a peer-to-peer sort of mentor program where board members can mentor new incoming board members. So you just have to ask. We do try to provide a lot of orientation, but you do just have to ask if you're lost or anything, and we will give you a hand, whether it be administratively or your peers on the board. So I'll just also lastly just double check in with Amy. Amy, any points that I've missed or we may not have covered?
I think we've gotten to all the questions in the chat. So that's everything. And this recording is going to be available on our website once we've had an opportunity just to clean it up a bit. So anyone who might not have been here from the very beginning, feel free to check back in a few days' time, and that should be available for you to review or for anyone who wasn't able to attend in person today.
Perfect. So again, thank you for attending. This is great to see that you got interest in it. It can seem daunting, but give it a go. If you're interested, do apply. I think it's a wonderful experience. It's great to have new voices at the table as well, and you will be supported. So if you have any questions further, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll hopefully see your nominations come in and see you running for election in the fall. So thank you, everybody. And as Amy said, the recording will be up in a couple of days. Thanks very much. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Netta. Bye, Derek. Take care.